This is the Enjoyer Podcast. I'm your host, James Dixon. So I have to start with humility. It's not a characteristic trait, but I'm going to start today with humility. I didn't think this day would come. I did not think that John James would want to leave Washington, an amazing town, for Lansing, which, if you've been to Lansing, look, they have a great Chipotle there nowadays. Some of my best friends live in Lansing, but it's not the kind of place I'd want to spend regular time. Washington's a better town than Lansing, and the bigger swamp has so many more accoutrements than the smaller swamp. Even if someone arrives in Washington with modest means, by the time a decade has passed there, they're a multimillionaire. The one thing Washington is not, though, is home. And it speaks to John James's character that after his taste of the swamp, after years in it, he still doesn't think of it as home. Not like an Alyssa Slotkin, our senator, who even filed for divorce in D.C. So what makes a man want to leave the good life he has, the good career he's building, and the right hand of President Donald Trump to pursue the risk of a run for governor? That's what we're going to learn today from our guest, Congressman John James, now a 2026 candidate for Michigan governor. John, welcome to the Enjoyer Podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. Looking forward to this conversation. I'll just start at the very beginning. Why run for governor? And specifically, why leave a good situation you've built in Congress? You 10x'd your win margin over the two races, over a Macomb County legend, Carl Marlinga. Why leave a good situation you've built to pursue this Jim Blanchard career path? I'm going to go from Washington to Lansing.
Well, let's first of all get into why I'm in politics to begin with. I want to be in politics just about as badly as I wanted to go to war, but I'm doing it for the same reason. I'm a combat veteran, and I went to serve my country because I believe the Lord has blessed me so tremendously that I had to use my blessings to be a blessing to others. I love my state. Michigan is a place that my father immigrated to here from the Jim Crow South for opportunity. But too often now our children are leaving for the opposite reason. It's the reason why I ran. I wanted to give back to my community, and having a combat background, understanding what it takes to protect lives, because I've done it before, having a business background, understanding what it takes to grow jobs and prosperity all over the state of Michigan, because I've done it before. And then also being able to be at President Trump's right hand, to be able to make Michigan great again, to build it here again. These are the types of things that we desperately need in leadership in the state of Michigan, a state that has been abandoned by its own leadership. So I'm looking forward to continuing my service to my state, and most importantly to the good Lord, because this is ultimately laying up for ourselves treasures in heaven, doing what we can to love our neighbors as ourselves, and using the great blessings and experiences the good Lord has given me to help make Michigan a better place.
Absolutely. I thought it was interesting because Blanchard, he leaves in the Reagan years. So basically the thought, I can counterbalance the White House from the governor's office. You have a friendly president in the White House and then want to be a friend to him in Lansing. Help people understand, because this is an extreme move. It is something we haven't seen in decades. And it just makes me think that given your situation, given the trajectory you're on, if you were to just stay on the same path, that you wouldn't do this if you didn't think the situation were dire.
Well,
you didn't think there was a need.
Yeah, the situation is dire, James. And frankly, President Trump has set a stellar example. Nobody more than President Trump is in a job that he doesn't need. The man is a multi-billionaire. He has 5 children, all of whom love him. He has a beautiful wife, and he has great friends. He doesn't need an assassination attempt and another one a few weeks later. He doesn't need the entire world against him, but he's doing it because our country was in dire straits.
Right.
Our country needed a leader like President Trump to stand up and say no more. Our country needs someone to come back and say, we're going to secure our borders, we're going to lower inflation, we're going to get fair trade deals, we're going to end wars all over the world. And so we need something like that in Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer is spending $20 billion per year more than she was spending 5 years ago. Where are we getting that money from? What are we doing to future generations? Well, we're looking at activist judges and prosecutors putting dangerous criminals back on the streets. You're looking at our education system at the very bottom of the barrel.
Oh.
And you're looking at our economic environment that is adversarial to businesses, which are crushing everyone from farms to factories that are already here. And we're not even on the bid list for site assessors for new opportunities come here. Michigan has suffered long enough, and we need somebody who is at President Trump's right hand, somebody who has experience in the real world in the toughest environments to finally deliver for Michigan. And I actually think that people in Michigan are ready for it. But folks may not know, you mentioned Jim Blanchard, and I'm glad you did. Jim Blanchard got 8 years, and then he was followed by John Engler for 12. And then after that, you had Granholm for 8 years. And then you had Snyder for 8 years. And now at the 26th, you're going to have Gretchen Whitmer for 8 years. And every single time since I was 2 years old, Michigan has called upon Republican governors to fix what Democrats wrote. And you see it in the data. You see the population go up under Republicans, and you see it go down under Democrats. And it's come down under Democrats, and we need to save our state together. We need to make Michigan great again.
Yeah, it's incredible, John. We're just about the same age. We've seen 2 lost decades in our lifetime. We're in our early 40s. It's just, and so, you know, my thesis, I've called it the ultimate battle for Michigan in 2026. But to me, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's more like a loser leaves town match in pro wrestling. If Democrats in a state that elects incumbents, if Democrats were to hold the governor's office from 2019 to 2035, there won't be a 2036.
There won't be. There won't be. But see, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, at least until the last 2 seasons. It got kind of crazy. But I remember a phrase, the North remembers. Democrats are counting on you forgetting. Democrats are counting on you forgetting what they did to you during COVID. They're counting on you forgetting what they did to your children in schools. They're counting on you forgetting what they did to your farms and your construction companies and your small businesses. They're counting on you forgetting what they did with your money. They're counting on you forgetting all of the broken promises they made and how they've wasted your money. They're counting on you forgetting that. And frankly, I like our chances because, again, Michigan always puts a Republican to fix the problems that Democrats created. But also, look around the country. The issues that Michigan most cares about, economic mobility, academic excellence, public safety, these are all issues that the people trust Republican governors with. That's why we've had Republican governors in blue states like Massachusetts and Maryland. And that's why in states like Vermont and New Hampshire, with 2 Democrat senators each, you have what? Republican governors. People understand that they don't want activists running their state. They want executives running their state. I have been in command in combat, and I've been a CEO of a company that's grown many times over and created hundreds of jobs in the manufacturing sector. And so when you're talking about family business, when family business matters in agriculture and automotive and elsewhere, when you're talking about things like ESTA, that is absolutely crushing businesses all over the entire state of Michigan, there are people who are making laws and rules about your life, and they've never lived outside of a cubicle before. We need to have people who understand what it's like on the ground to move our state forward, move our state ahead. And frankly, there's not a single candidate in any party that can say they have the relevant experience that I do to deliver on frankly, making your life easier, getting government out of the way so you can pursue your American dream the way you see fit.
You say make Michigan great again. And I mentioned it earlier, about the same age, early 40s, give or take a few years. Tell me about when Michigan was great and what happened then.
Michigan was great when we respected individuals, most notably families. Michigan was great when we recognized that education was the great equalizer. Michigan was great when we had leaders who recognized that the best government is efficient, fair, and limited. Michigan was great when we understood that we get out of the way in a government capacity and you allow individuals to excel. And this is the story that my father tells me. My father tells me a story of 1971 when he started a trucking company with one truck, one trailer, and no excuses. And the ability that he got actually to start that trucking company and thrive. Do you know he fought all the way up to the Supreme Court for the ability to start his business. And then after it was deregulated in the 80s, he credits Ronald Reagan for the tax reforms that he did so that he could further invest in his business.
Right.
And he said that because of the tax breaks that he was able to get under a Republican president, for every 4 trailers that he bought, he got 1 for free. Those are the types of things that made Michigan great, when people could continue to invest in themselves and
Right.
their communities, and not having the government spending your money and thinking they can spend
Yeah,
your
I'm like, is that deal still active? Is that
no.
a thing? I don't get the sense that anything's free anymore.
Well, nothing's free. But here's the thing right now is, because of the irresponsible spending, we're looking at debt issues that are really going to cripple our state long term. We need to focus on fiscal responsibility in a manner that both enables us to deliver. Look at investments, because all investments aren't created equal. We need to get rid of the subtractive regulations and rules, and really look at what is additive, what is multiplicative, in order to allow our state to grow and thrive. Michigan is great when we allow our citizens to lead the way, not the folks in Lansing.
Now, you're also a father, and part of the reason I'm not a father is I just worry. I mean, for 10 years I lived in Ferndale. I would have had to send my kid to Hazel Park schools. I mean, it's just everywhere I look, I see that the schools and the education, like we got an education, I see kids now getting a re-education. It makes you not want to take your hand off that chess piece, because you're like, what am I leaving my kids to? How is their Michigan different than our Michigan was?
Well, I believe there was a great deal more accountability when we were growing up. And I think that accountability drove results. I absolutely, when you look at the amount of money that we're spending on education and you divide that by the number of K through 12 students that we have, we're looking at spending over $10,000 per pupil. The money that we have is not getting directly to the classrooms. And then when we have a lack of transparency and accountability, then you lack in performance. Right now, the adult literacy rate in the city of Detroit is in the mid 40%. When you look at fourth grade reading scores are 40%. In the city of Detroit itself, only 5% of third graders can read at grade level. Our entire state, like I mentioned before, is at the bottom of the barrel in education. And so what we would do under my administration in Lansing is we would be laser focused on focusing on the fundamentals. Literacy, James. Can you read? And then when you start the year, I'm going to give the resources to the schools. I want public schools to be successful. I want private schools to be successful. Homeschooling, charter schools, you name it. I believe that when you give parents a choice, you give children a chance, and a quality education is a basic civil right. And those who are getting in the way of a quality education and getting in the way of choice for parents, then you will be held accountable by my administration. We will have transparency. We will have accountability down to the classroom to make sure that our kids can read, James. We start with literacy and we build with numeracy, and we do everything else. But the one thing we will not have, the thing that we didn't have, is we prioritized academics.
Yes.
We prioritized academics over activism. And right now, under Gretchen Whitmer, they prioritize activism over academics. We are going to focus on the fundamentals. We're going to make sure that our kids can read. And then for everyone who's already graduated, there is definitely a case to be made and funding to be had for earn and learn, skilled trades, going back and getting additional support and assistance,
Right.
and then incentivizing companies to continue the great work that they are already doing to invest in their people. See, companies are all over, are doing the best that they possibly can, and the government needs to get out of their way to continue to allow them to do great things. So again, the change in culture has been, we need to prepare our children to pursue the American dream on their own accord, and that we need to have fiscal strength so we can continue to invest in our kids, starting with literacy, then numeracy, and then building around the entire kid.
Yeah. Anytime you announce that somebody's running for office in Michigan, especially on Twitter, immediately the critics come out. And it's amazing. I think there are people who spend more time criticizing fellow Republicans than I ever see them going at Democrats. And I notice a very disturbing trend in Michigan whereby the Republican voter will criticize Republicans during the race. I'm talking about the general. Primary, do what you got to do. But there used to be an understanding that you'd come together. It would be 11th commandment time.
Yeah,
No more speaking ill of fellow Republicans. Let's get across the goal line. But I see almost the opposite. And people are looking for all these reasons why not and reasons to discredit. So when you announced, the one I hear is, look, John James has built this wall around his congressional seat. He 10x'd it. Why would he go from stability into the unknown? And then what's going to happen to his seat? So let's take that as a two-parter.
yeah.
Why take this risk, and what's going to happen with your seat?
Well, the first thing is, this is not my seat, James. This seat belongs to the people of the 10th Congressional District. This seat belongs to Michigan. This is not my seat. How arrogant to think that I'm the only one who could do this job. This is how you end up with career politicians. I'm a combat veteran, and I am an automotive leader who is going to serve my country and my state for a time and then take my tail back home. I believe, and I know for a fact, there's amazing talent in 10th Congressional District, and a number of them are on my short list. But I'm going to make sure that we support the succession plan so that we can continue to build our bench. Now, the next question, I'm going to take you back. Mike Bishop lost his seat because we didn't have the strongest top of ticket possible.
Right.
In 2018, I actually outperformed the top of the ticket by 3.1% as a newcomer against Debbie Stabenow with marijuana on the ballot. In 2020, coming out of a recession in COVID, I still outperformed the top of the ticket by 1.1. In 2022, with abortion on the ballot, with our candidate losing by double digits, I won by a half a point with abortion on the ballot. This midterm, President Trump is not going to be at the top of the ticket to help us.
Yes.
He's going to continue to advocate because he loves Michigan. But we need to put the strongest candidate to win and help the rest of the ticket. This is small ball if you're just talking about a seat. We have to talk about holding Tom Barrett's seat, flipping McDonald Rivet's seat, holding the 10th district, and making sure that we grow our majority so we can deliver on President Trump's mandate to make America great again. We can't do that by playing small ball. You know what else you can't do? You also can't flip the Senate in Lansing. We need a trifecta to execute on these missions that we're talking about. And you know when we do that? Michigan usually elects a governor for at least 2 terms. We've seen this since 1983.
Right.
And by 2026, I'm a history guy. So if you have to go back to 1963, by 2026, Michigan will have 40 years of Republican governors, only 24 of Democrat. This is actually a red state that's hungry for Republican leadership. And we'll give them a reason to do that. You know why? Because we have another census coming up in 2030. Do you know what that means for redistricting, James? It means that we have an actual legal map that will begin to increase our majorities and be able to bring Michigan back to sanity. You know what that also means for judges, James? It also means that we don't have a Supreme Court that's ruling in the direct opposite interest of the state of Michigan. Rick Snyder used to say that he would love to be the governor in 1932 because he set us on a trajectory to have a surplus. Gretchen Whitmer burned through it in the first few years.
$9 billion.
Thank you. That's exactly right. We literally cannot afford to put a weak gubernatorial candidate at the top of the ticket, nor can we afford a messy primary. Do you know what a messy primary? You know, the only people who want a messy primary is Mike Duggan. Mike Duggan wants a messy primary. He's going out there implying Trump support. He's going out there implying support from West Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
He's going out there telling these tall tales because he recognizes that he has no path unless we self-own.
Right.
We have to get our act together, and we have to recognize, to your original question, and this is what I've observed in politics, is that Democrats before Trump, Democrats would rather win than be right, whereas Republicans, it seems, would rather be right than win.
Absolutely.
We can be right and win, but we need to make sure that we're putting our best players on the field and not shooting ourselves in the foot. That is why I believe that it's not just about the 10th district. It's about the state of Michigan and setting us on a trajectory long term to make Michigan great again.
Absolutely. And it's the ballot. You know, it's weird. We just had an election where Republicans were successful in Michigan. Donald Trump wins the election, wins the state. Only legislative body, the Michigan House, to flip to Republican control last November. And yet, in their psychic memory of what happened, it seems like most Michigan Republicans relate more to 2022 and losing than 2024 and winning. And if you think that everything is stolen, and if you think that everyone else besides yourself, who doesn't even use their real name, is a rhino, we're going to book a loss. What do you see mentality-wise? I see a mentality that feeds into losing and makes losing a self-fulfilling prophecy, because, you know, you're criticizing all the candidates and all this stuff. Mentality-wise, can you give a little pep talk to the Michigan Republican voter?
Yes. James, I'm a Lions fan. I'm a lifelong Lions fan. I love the Lions. I love Michigan. And the difference is leadership. When Dan Campbell came to town, he believed in his players. Mm. And he came and he helped set a culture with Brad Holmes where the players, it's very important, where the players believed. Now, he could believe in them all that he wanted to, but it didn't start to make a difference until the players believed in themselves. When these plays that are being called, you have to have Penei Sewell saying, sir, I can catch that ball. I can do these things. Mm-hmm. I know that we have no defense, but we can fight this hard and we can only take one loss. These are the types of things that happen when a team believes in itself. And Dan Campbell helped set that culture, because culture eats strategy for lunch. What we need here in our party first is a culture change, and culture change can only come with leadership. Being able to lead cultures is exactly what I've done in combat and at my company, to get people to understand that the hero they're looking for, the answer that they need, is looking at them directly in the mirror. It's not about what Dan Campbell did or said, but about what he was able to get out of people. And I truly believe that when Republicans have the leadership that they can actually see and believe in, when they can have somebody who continues to deliver, to someone who finally answers their questions, I have no doubt that we will get on board and we will execute, because this is our only time. How many times do we think that we're going to have a Democrat mayor run as an independent in a midterm election with a strong candidate that had already gotten 2.64 million votes
unheard of
a few years ago? We don't get this opportunity anytime else in our lives. So, and I would also say, James, if people are like, hey, you're in a tough seat, why are you leaving it? I guarantee you, if I were in a safe seat, they would say, he's never run a tough election. There's always going to be naysayers.
That's exactly it.
There's always going to be naysayers. And so we have to decide whether or not we are going to change our culture. And we will change our culture through our behavior, our actions, and demanding better of ourselves. And I believe that we are fully ready for it. In the excitement that I'm hearing, I'm getting videos of people in their garages who have my old John James for Senate. Remember that yard sign?
Oh, yeah.
They actually take tape tape over Senate and write governor in it. And we're fired up. There are people who are hungry for change. People are hungry for tested leadership. And I'm excited to work with my team all over the state of Michigan to fire this thing back up because we have a lot of work to do.
I think I know what you're going to say, because what I'm hearing is a lot of passion for specifically the executive mission. Some people say, oh, I'm not sure if I want to run for governor or Senate. You're not 1 inch confused about what you're doing. But some people do say, I mean, I might have said before having this conversation, is John James running for the right race? He's built this, he has plenty of contacts in Washington. He has plenty of access to the DC money machine. They have reason to think he could make good on that investment were he to run for Senate. Mallory McMorrow is certainly no Alyssa Slotkin, even when she is properly hydrated. If people say, are you running the right race?
The finish line of the race that I have, the reward is not here, but in heaven. And I know the good Lord has given me the experience in executive leadership to deliver on the great promises that He has made in my life. And so I'm going to allow Him to work through me to deliver Michigan. No one man can fix an entire state. Only the Lord can do that. And I pledge to love everyone, to work with anyone, and to do anything to make Michigan great again. And there are certain things that you can do as a governor to lead that is neither believable nor possible to do as a senator. The mission has always been Michigan. It's why I started this to begin with. And after learning, because, we do learn, right? After learning exactly what it means to be a representative as opposed to what the state needs, I am fully on board 100% without a doubt or hesitation in my heart or mind if this is the direction that we need to go. I actually did struggle with this, and I'll be honest with you all. I struggled. I prayed and I said, I asked the Lord, is this what He wants? And I talked to my wife, I talked to my kids. Because so often we think of our kids as children and not as little people.
Little people. That's how my mom used to talk about them. Little people. Yeah.
I mean, even Jesus says, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven." I mean, they have thoughts too, such that Jesus even invited them. But continuing on. After a conversation with our pastor, he said, he just reminded me that the Lord will grant our requests if they are in accordance with His will. I believe that the Lord wants all of us to live better, safer lives. And I think that He's willing to work through any of us who are willing to submit to Him out of love for every single individual, whether or not you believe or love. It is my job to deliver and for every single one of us, every 10 million, all 10 million people in the state of Michigan. And so being in the role of governor is a particular role to being 1 out of 1 as opposed to 1 out of 435.
Absolutely.
To actually be able to deliver for the people of the state of Michigan, because again, we've suffered long enough and we need somebody who can, 1, get elected, and then 2, be able to deliver based upon the credible experience that we've actually had over the past few years.
On that electability piece, you and I don't think this way, but there are people who do. Sam Robinson of Detroit 1 Million asked this on Twitter, so I'll blame him. I stand here prepared to fully blame Sam Robinson for this question. Is Michigan ready for a black governor?
You know what? That's going to be up to the people of the state of Michigan. That's going to be up to Republicans. But, it is really funny that leftists have called Republicans racist for so long, but somehow I was able to get 2.64 million votes out of Republicans in Michigan. I was able to get elected in Macomb County and Rochester Hills. Look at this. There have been three elected black governors in our nation's history, 3, and they've all been Democrat. But right now, President Donald J. Trump, going into our 250th anniversary as a country, has the opportunity to make 3 in a year. Winsome Sears is running in Virginia,
right?
Friend Byron Donalds in Florida, and me right here in Michigan. And so when you look at this narrative and the fact that they call President Trump racist, you're looking at people who finally get it. You're
Right.
finally seeing with the fact that I've been elected before and supported by Republicans all over the state already for the past 7 years.
Mm.
That Republicans in Michigan are judging me by the content of my character
Yeah.
rather than the color of my skin. I am the walking result of the American dream, and it's
Mm.
because of you. So I'll say, it's not can a black man get elected in the state of Michigan? It's about electing the best candidate to make sure that we can make Michigan great again.
Yeah, and it's funny because I saw you leading in the Republican primary polling. So when people ask that question, it's like, are you really asking if Democrats would vote for a black guy?
Right?
Because
We already have Republicans. Yeah, that's a great point. Are you asking if Democrats are able to vote for a black man?
mm-hmm. Or does it need to be a certain type of black man? Maybe
Ah,
if you spoke with a lisp, or
uh,
maybe if you wore a wig. Uh, John, you are an always Trumper. I
always.
came around. I'm a late adopter. I came around because from the Bible on, when I see historically, I find that persecution follows truth. And so when I see lawfare and you see the media stuff from Russiagate on, the Access Hollywood tape, then you have assassination attempts. And so I was a DeSantis guy and back in 2022, was excited for him to run. And then ultimately, came to have that ultimate respect for Trump and to go with him again. But you were earlier to support Trump 2024 than Tudor Dixon, than some others who might run against you right now. You did this before it was easy, before it was popular, before Elon and everyone jumped on the bandwagon. This was a time when Trump was still being painted as an insurrectionist. There was not a lot of runway to be pro Trump at that moment. It was risky before it was beneficial. Why was that a risk worth taking?
I didn't see it as a risk, James. Look. I remember Trump 2000%. I was actually attacked. I was attacked for being with Trump, and this was back in September 2017 when I made that Trump 2000%. I am an always Trumper, James, and it's been 8 years through thick and thin,
Mm,
and I've been with the president, and the president has been with me. I think it's a
mm,
remarkable partnership. I was just on the phone with President Trump 2 days ago, and the ability to be able to pick up the phone and talk to the President of the United States is such a massive benefit for the state of Michigan. I was with the president in 2018. We endorsed each other. Endorsed in 2020 on the ballot in
yeah.
2020, and then in 2022. Still with the president through his trials, through his tribulation, through the assassinations attempts, the ups and downs. I have never left the president's side, and thankfully, he's never left mine. So
Mm.
I'm looking forward to continue working closely with the president to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave him, and I'm excited to deliver that, not just in this Congress, but also as your next governor of the state of Michigan.
Now, John, as Christian men, we're not sitting here cheering on anybody's downfall. I certainly would never be caught doing such a thing, but we do note things. We do note things that happen for posterity. 50 years from now, people are going to be saying, what happened in Michigan in 2025? Pop on the podcast and you'll see. So we knew going into this year that Gretchen Whitmer would serve this year and next as a lame duck. I don't think anyone expected the collapse of the House of Whitmer like we just saw last week in the Oval Office. And what I found fascinating about that John is that 5 years ago that week, Trump made Whitmer by calling her that woman from Michigan. And then 5 years later to the week, he
Wow.
ended her by inviting her to the Oval Office, saying nice things, letting her own awkwardness do the rest. You know the president. You were just on the phone with him. I got to ask for a little bit of inside baseball, John. Does Trump have an awareness that he created Whitmer into the monster she became? And was that Oval Office trip a conscious effort to maybe make good on that?
The president has and continues to play 3D chess. The man is otherworldly when he thinks about what he's doing. And the thing that I've taken away when he's invited me to the Oval Office many times, and the questions that he's asked, is he's an epic listener. If you
Mm,
haven't, check out what Bill Maher said recently. This is a liberal. right?
Oh
And
yeah.
no friend of Republicans or MAGA per se, but even he had to admit how charismatic our president is, how caring our president is, and how good of a listener he is. These are things that if even his stated opponents can acknowledge, then it's something that animates exactly who he is. The president knew exactly what he was doing, essentially putting the spotlight on her and making it awkward because he knew that a state like Michigan would not take too kindly for someone who says one thing and does another, speaks out of both sides of their mouths. They're
Yes.
coming to the White House to ask me for things in private and
Right.
do say other things in public to the point where, I mean, this is about the office too.
Hmm.
When you're coming asking me for things and you're ashamed to
Right.
be in the White House in the Oval Office, he just allowed her to step in her own mess. I mean, to say, just backing up, to say here that you're advocating and you're fighting for all Michiganders, but you are embarrassed to represent all 10 million of us, not just the ones who voted for you.
Hmm.
You're ashamed to represent all 10 million of us at the foot of the Resolute desk. Then that indicates to me that you are more partisan than leader. And we don't have time for that anymore.
It undercuts the humility that was supposed to be implied by being there in the first place.
That's right. That's right.
If you're going to go hat in hand, you have to go hat in hand. You have to sell it. And what you can't do is throw the stone and hide your hand.
That's right.
And you certainly don't hide your face behind a binder. I mean, I was sad to, I mean, like you're running for, to be our chief executive. John, can you promise you'll never do anything like that?
Look, I can promise you that because this is about projecting strength, but not just projecting strength, but being strong. I don't have to fake it. When you show up on behalf of people, you have to execute and not be afraid and do the right thing regardless of consequence. You asked a few moments ago about supporting President Trump. I did so without hesitation 8 years ago, and I do so without hesitation now. I will work with anyone and everyone to make Michigan a better place. And that is completely divorced from my ego. I say all the time that I'm slow, but I can be taught. Anybody can teach me anything. But because of the experience I've already accumulated in my 43 years of life, it puts me in a much better position to lead effectively immediately. So, yeah, no, if I ever get invited to the Oval Office, I will certainly not be ashamed. I wasn't ashamed when I met President Trump in the Oval in 2018, and I'm certainly not ashamed to advocate for, I believe, the greatest leader in our time right now.
John, we'll get you out of here on this one. I've learned with what happened in 2022. I'm not going to lie. I was so caught up in my animus and my anger over what had happened during COVID. I promise to God, I thought that Tudor Dixon was going to win the governor's race. And so to this day, I still deal with people on Twitter and they have the same question. Just how could someone do what Whitmer did during the pandemic and still win? And as I've come to understand it, you got to look at the totality of the ballot. You got to look at Michigan history. You could say that in a sense, the 2022 race was won in 2018. You could also say that when you look at 3 ballot measures, which all 3 were designed to drive Democrat turnout, it could have been James Craig or John Engler or Stevens T. Mason's ghost on the ballot against Whitmer, and they would have had a tough time. So I can see the totality and just everything was tilted towards success. When you think about the totality of the 2026 ballot, what kind of ballot measure would you like to see alongside you?
Oh, wow. I would say that something to make our state better. And I think that being able to trust our elections is something that is a very, very high importance. Being able to trust that only Michigan citizens will vote, especially as we've discovered that 15 folks on 16 folks, thank you, 16 folks voted illegally. And then you have Jocelyn Benson, who has been smacked down by the courts multiple times, and her ballots, presuming them valid, I believe shifted the outcome of the 2020 election. But when you look at her racial gerrymandering, that was
Yeah.
it's the first case of racial gerrymandering north of the Mason-Dixon line, and that's because of Jocelyn Benson. I think that right now we have to get our ducks in a row. This is completely up to Republicans. Are we going to coalesce behind the strongest ticket and make sure that we get a Republican in there, or are we going to sow chaos within our own ranks and allow Mike Duggan to run the middle? Are we going to allow Jocelyn Benson to get 8 years? These are the types of questions that we need to answer right now. And focusing forward, I think election integrity would be a good look. And then we'll take a look at creating a better business environment and also creating a better educational environment, giving choice to our parents and giving opportunity for our businesses.
Absolutely. John, where can people learn more about yourself and your campaign?
Well, if you go to johnjamesmi.com, or you can just follow me on the socials at johnjamesmi. Looking forward to your support and looking forward to being your next governor.
Awesome. John, be blessed. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, James. Appreciate you. Keep up the great work.